That's so great. Are these working yet, Joseph? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So the people watching for the first time, what'd you think? I've seen that so many times. This time around, Tony Shalhoub is my favorite. Honestly, oh man.
Always was.
Oh, the trip. So, and I noticed for the first time at the very end there, Guy is the only one not killed by Ceres. Well, enough about me. Give a big hand. She's British. Dr. Rachael.
Thank you very much. That is my favorite line in that movie for obvious reasons. So as I said, I've got three very, very special guests with me tonight. I am Dr. Rachael Livermore. I'm an astrophysicist at University of Texas here in Austin. And I have three more whole astrophysicists here joining me tonight. First up is my Astronomy on Tap ATX co-founder, Dr. Jeffrey Silverman. We also have from the American Museum of Natural History, where she works just down the hall from Neil deGrasse Tyson, Ashley Pagnotta.
Please don't bother her with questions. He's a really cool guy. That's all you need to know.
And you get your own entrance music. From Columbia University, Moiya McTier. We're going to analyze the extremely serious science in these historical documents. Now, the first thing I'm sure many of you noticed in this movie is there are one or two references to another TV show that is a little over 50 years old. And as we were discussing this movie, we realized we could spend an entire half hour just talking about the Star Trek references in this movie, but that would be boring because there's a million websites that have done exactly that. So we're just going to spend 1 minute. What is your favorite Star Trek reference in this movie? Let's start with Moiya.
Yeah, so this on? Yeah. So I'm actually young enough that it's been a really long time, and I was really young when a lot of the Star Trek movies came out, so I had to look up those millions of pages. And the favorite one that I found was at the beginning when Gwen talks about the interview with the TV guide about it was basically all about her boobs. That actually happened with Jerry Ryan, who played 7 of 9 on Voyager. Unfortunately.
I think they had similar issues with zipper malfunctions in their suits. Yeah. So my favorite was a very small line where Laredo talks about how when he had been a child working on the set, how he had figured out, like he had kind of made up all the different motions for moving the ship around, and that's actually something that Will Wheaton, who played Wesley Crusher, had done when he was a child working on Star Trek. Was he made up all of his own command sequences and different ways to drive the ship. So I like that little shot.
Unnecessary shirtless Tim Allen.
I think mine actually has to be when they're on the planet. Does the rolling help? That is great. So for anyone who didn't notice, the registration number on the ship is NTE 3120. NTE, of course, stands for Not the Enterprise. We could not work out if 3120 was a reference of any kind.
We'll take suggestions in the bar afterwards, so everybody's got an idea.
All right, so on to some science in the movie. When we're hearing about the history of the Thermians, we hear about something called the Great Nebula Burst. So since we have some experts on astrophysics here, Great Nebula Burst, what is it?
Not a supernova.
Yeah, star ejecting something or other, turning on, I don't know. I was really reaching to try and explain this one, so I don't got anything great.
Yeah, I don't have anything either. I think it's just trying to come up with space words that sound good together.
Space words that sound good together.
Yeah, I have a planetary nebula on the right-hand side, also maybe that. I do want to point out that when I was rewatching this, it reminded me of another very bad sci-fi movie. This is one I like, but a not good sci-fi movie recently that had a similar thing where they had a neutrino burst from a stellar ignition, I think was the gobbledygook they said. Some people in the room here know the science advisor on that movie, and I should all give Brad Tucker crap for that. So.
We should say the experience of being a science advisor on the movie seems to be being ignored an awful lot. So I'm sure he did not come up with that. Well, I wouldn't put it past him. So we have another quote we hear in the history of the Thermians. This one, when he has tortured our scientists, put us to work in the gallium arsenide mines, luckily I still have it here, captured our females for his own demented purposes. So gallium arsenide, is that something you want to mine, anyone?
No, don't.
Well, it's something you don't want to mine if you're a human, but maybe Thermians can mine it without any problem.
It is in fact poisonous and carcinogenic to humans. So also we're not sure, we can't find a way that it's naturally occurring. Jeff did a lot of research on this and we don't think it actually naturally occurs. Definitely not on Earth. But apparently, is my mic on?
Yeah, so I want to borrow a mic.
What about now?
Yeah!
It helps if you push the button. Yeah, gallium arsenide, poisonous, toxic, carcinogenic, and probably not naturally occurring, not that we can find. So
For anything?
it's very good for things. Yes, it's very useful in our technology. It's a good thing we can make it, but we don't want to be mining it. But yeah, like Moiya said, perhaps the Thermians are immune to the toxicity of it.
All right, so this is one of my favorite lines of technobabble in this movie. We apologize for operating in low power mode, but we are experiencing a reflective flux field this close to the galactic axis. So first point of discussion, what is the galactic axis?
My guess is that it's the galactic plane, right? So if the galaxy is a pancake, then it's just the flat part of the galaxy where a lot of stars are. That's what I think the galactic axis is.
I buy that. I'm okay with that.
I mean, it could also be the opposite. It could be like the direction pointing out, right?
Those are basically the two options.
Now, the more difficult part, reflective flux field.
Yeah, I got nothing. I mean, it made me think flux capacitor, which is also a classic technobabble, but...
The stars are all too shiny for them to see. So they have to be on low power mode because if they go too fast, they'll hit something. I don't know.
That's better than anything I've got.
All right, so we had a black hole there, and it was pulling material from its neighbor star. This is a thing that happens. Some kind of binary system. Often it spits out X-rays, so sometimes they're called a binary, X-ray binary. We actually had a talk at Astronomy on Tap Austin about this, about 2 years ago? Dr. Amanda Bayless talked about these things. So the images looked vaguely real with the sort of stream from the big star swirling around the black hole, and now they got my mic back. Great. Okay, so yeah, that image was kind of cool, and going through a black hole or wormhole to travel far distances has been theorized, so okay, maybe some okay science.
This is how low our bar is.
So mine is.
Is this one on?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is how low our bar is for science in these movies. Traveling through a black hole, we have absolutely no problem with. Let's see if that was working. But one issue that some of you did pick up on is that they didn't get fried going into the black hole.
Yeah, all of the accreting black holes that we know of are also, like Jeff said, these major X-ray sources, and the X-rays are usually coming out in a jet that is exactly along the axis where the ship went in. And when we were talking about this earlier, we're like, okay, so maybe the ship has super shielding, like turn it up to 11. But then, rewatching it again this time, we noticed that when they sent Tim Allen back the first time, they sent him through just in his like jelly coating, and that does not have super high shielding that can withstand X-rays. It's fine.
We'll take it, I guess. Yeah.
Depends on the jelly.
That's true. It depends on the jelly.
So one thing that's extremely central to the premise of this movie is the idea that the Thermians received these historical documents, which have been traveling out from Earth at the speed of light for about 20 years. And in the time since they received them, they have developed the entire spaceship that was based on like made-up TV physics, and they managed to create all of it in reality in at most 20 years. So any guesses as to how far away their planet is?
We don't really know because they're going through the wormholes, right? So,
63rd gamma quadrant or
yeah.
something.
Which is not how we label things in space at all.
So we're assuming that the TV signal also went through the black hole,
Sure.
right?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, because otherwise you would have to wait, so our signals don't transmit instantaneously. So they would have to wait for however long it took for the signal to get there, and then build it, and then travel back. But again, the wormhole is a really nice solution to the whole distance of space problem.
So I mean, they mentioned, Gilligan's Island, that's on our list of, they've already gotten that signal. So they've gotten all these other shows, including Star Trek original series and animated series, all these other shows and many more, and they chose like this one to build. So like in my mind, I'm writing fanfic about like, well, what if they just decided to build, I don't know, Gilligan's Island. They're like, we're gonna save these poor people and build a boat and find them, or various other shows. You could have the spin-offs, infinite sequels of this movie.
To me, the most impressive thing is that even if the signal got to them instantaneously and then they were able to travel back to Earth instantaneously, they would have had to develop all of this technology in like 20 years. And it took us, 60 years? Well, we started thinking about space in the US in the 60s. We're now almost at 2020 and we still just starting to send things out of the solar system. So maybe they're over 4 times as advanced as us. Maybe they're 4 times faster than us in developing space technology. That's cool for them, but I don't think that's the case.
They fund science better than we do.
They also have 4 times as many arms.
So speaking of their arms, so I pointed out when we were discussing this earlier that they developed all of this technology without opposable thumbs. But then I wondered, do you need opposable thumbs when you have this many limbs?
My theory is that they have these suction cup things on their tentacles and they just attach things to their suction cups and then flail around and use those in the mines.
Yeah, which is also how they mined all of that gallium arsenide.
Exactly.
So this is one of the few things I'll actually give them slight credit for. One of the things that I know Dr. Rachael has talked about for Star Trek type stuff, TV show and movies, most aliens we see are pretty humanoid. They sort of have 2 legs, usually 2 arms. They might have weird colored skin or a thing on their head, like characters here, Spock, etc. But these are totally non-human looking things. And in fact, on Earth, like cephalopod, octopus things are pretty damn smart. They're some of the smartest animals. So it's not totally wacky to think maybe they developed and evolved to be the dominant species somewhere else. So I'll give them some science props for that.
Although, have you ever noticed that in sci-fi, when they're trying to really get away from the humanoid alien type thing, they either go for octopus cephalopod type stuff or like balls of gas? It's one of those two. It's like we haven't been able to think of anything else that's not like a human.
Well, cephalopods are like movie budget, balls of gas are TV budget. So now we're getting into a few things that are really, really common things that science fiction tends to do. So, as brilliant as that scene is, it does have the very, very common science fiction problem of sound in space.
That was actually related to another Astronomy on Tap talk way back. I don't remember when that was, but Dr. Boom is in the audience somewhere. So over there talking about this is one of the major issues in a lot of sci-fi is sound in space, and it's a vacuum, you don't get sound. But you hear
A
screaming.
thing I've ranted about at many of these movie screenings as well.
The internal sound would still be there though.
Right, so this was my excuse for this scene is that the sound we're hearing, even when the camera is outside the ship, is the sound inside on the command deck, and I got some skeptical looks from you guys when I suggested this.
There are other scenes in the movie where, like, there's missiles whizzing by and there's some other issues. But yeah, this one I might give you, and yeah, it's a cool scene.
It's worth it.
Sure.
Just for the cringes alone.
So another thing that happens really, really often in science fiction is everyone is very conveniently facing the right way up.
It's that galactic axis.
Why not? Why not?
So we did decide that perhaps there was some kind of galactic treaty that defined an up direction galaxy just to make, fighting a little bit easier. And another obvious one, you notice how people are, hang on, I've got to play this because it's great. That's great. People are just kind of standing and sitting normally in Earth gravity on the ship. This is just never mentioned in this movie. They just have some kind of gravity generator, I guess.
Yeah, and it's totally reasonable to have a gravity generator on a spaceship with your alien species on it, but that gravity would be the gravity of the planet you're from, right? So this gravity should be Thermia's gravity. There's no reason that the humans on that ship should be adapted to that gravity. They should be either like jumping around all loosey-goosey or really dense and down. So there's no reason that humans and Thermians should have the same sense of gravity, should be adapted to the same gravity.
And also, like, whatever species Saris is,
Yeah,
seem quite happy as well. And, the planet they visit also appears,
Right,
pretty
yeah,
Earth
everything
gravity.
is super conveniently really Earth-like.
Almost like it's filmed on Earth.
But not quite. Almost.
So this is another of my favourite bits of technobabble that I cannot wait to hear your explanations for. We might be able to get there if we reconfigure the solar matrix for endothermic in parallel for endothermic propulsion. Who wants to explain this one?
I think you had the best explanation.
Did I? My theory was that the solar matrix is this solar panel kind of capacitor type thing that just stores energy from whatever star they're happening to be closest to. And that would provide an endothermic propulsion, like Rachael pointed that out to us. But if that's what it's already doing all the time, then it shouldn't have to be reconfigured. So I don't know
What else are you using a solar panel for, I guess?
Right.
We also discovered that not all of us remember the time. So we're trying to come up with why it would be in parallel. And the only thing I can think of is this was possibly around the time when we finally got the genius idea to start putting Christmas lights in parallel. So you remember it used to be that if one bulb burnt out, your entire strand was gone. And they only fixed that, it's definitely within my memorable lifetime. So it was a maximum of 20 years ago.
So I don't remember it.
She doesn't remember that. So we all feel extra old.
I think this one actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So they could configure the solar matrix in parallel with the normal propulsion system, the beryllium sphere, for the endothermic propulsion for expelling the heat energy.
Sure, sounds great.
Want to be an astronomer?
I'm good at the software engineer.
There you go.
And for anyone who doesn't remember their high school physics, endothermic is a kind of reaction that brings heat in. So my hand-wavy, sure, this is fine, idea is that any kind of solar power brings heat in. So sure, that's endothermic, right? That's how we refer to that all the time.
Never give up. Never surrender.
Oh, shut up.
So the beryllium sphere. So, they're rolling this big beryllium sphere around. Like, beryllium is a real element. It's on the periodic table. You can go to Wikipedia and read about it. I did. It's a metal. It's a relatively light metal. It's relatively low density. So, okay, they've got a big sphere. They can roll it around. It's still metal. So I did the calculation. Pretty straightforward, not hard to do. That sphere weighs about a ton. In fact, if you look up the exact number of pounds, it's very close to a 2014 Nissan Versa Note, which is the car that Dr. Rachael drives.
Never give
So
up.
that would be a picture of it. So rolling that around, okay, maybe if you got it rolling, but then stopping it, yeah, that's it's pretty heavy. That's
Yeah, we're very good at maneuvering that.
1 ton sphere. Yeah.
Maybe it's the gravity.
Sure.
Like gravity.
But we did decide that maybe it's not a solid beryllium sphere. If you want to maximize surface area, you would make it like you mentioned, a honeycomb kind of structure.
Or an egg shell type thing. Beryllium egg.
All right, so this minefield, this confuses me. We're told that this minefield exists as a leftover of some war or another. But when you first see it, it's like this tiny little cloud in the middle of space. Space is three-dimensional, at least. So you can go one side of it, you can go the other side of it, you can go above it, you can go below it. So the real purpose of this minefield is somewhat opaque to me.
I'm concerned that these things, they mentioned they're magnetic a couple times. All right, maybe they're not magnetized until you pass by. They got some motion sensor, maybe they light up here. But then they just start following the ship, not each other. So I was trying to work out the electromagnetism, how this could work. And I was just like, magnets, how do they work? I gave up. So I got nothing further.
Sometimes they hit the ship, and then sometimes they can just be carried along by the ship, so they can change their magnetic field. Sure.
So it's kind of amazing that during whatever war where they were fighting over, they managed to create something that has plot-dependent properties, just like out of a science fiction TV show.
Clearly
Impressive.
they lost that war.
Hey, don't open that! It's an alien planet! Is there air? You don't know!
Seems okay.
So, hands down, best scene in the movie,
My
right?
favorite, by far. I mean, yeah, my two favorite characters, amazing scene, love it.
So we were talking about, I guess they're making fun of Star Trek, where they just assume that they can breathe on whatever planet they're going to. But in Star Trek, they've already classified the planet as M-class before they get there, which is by definition oxygen atmosphere, nitrogen oxygen atmosphere. So they make a good point. When we were discussing this earlier, I think one of you pointed out that there are no Thermians with them on this away mission for reasons, and these guys are actors, and so I guess it didn't occur to them. And the Thermians just assumed that they would do whatever atmospheric check they were supposed to do before they opened the hatch.
Because undoubtedly during the series, in the historical documents, they would have talked about sensing atmospheric conditions and is it habitable, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes sense that Thermians would have built something into this shuttle, but yeah, none of them know how to operate that.
You're giving a lot of credit to the writers who came up with the crushing things.
It's a badly written episode.
Maybe not all of them were poorly written.
I don't think I remember ever hearing a discussion about, sensing that the elements in the atmosphere on Star Trek. My theory is that they have this catalog of planets that are okay for humans and other human-like creatures to walk on, so they just shy away from planets that aren't okayed on that catalog.
Sure. So there's been like a pre-survey.
Yeah.
Right. That's fair. Now, there are reasons to think that you wouldn't necessarily expect planets to have oxygen in their atmosphere. Oxygen is not stable in the atmosphere. We have it on Earth because we have a lot of plants. One thing that's very obviously missing on this planet is any kind of greenery. So, and apparently you can sniff the air and smell oxygen.
That sounds right to me. I'm no biologist, but I'm pretty sure.
Totally reasonable. All right, so this is actually one of my favorite things.
What's the Omega-13 device do?
Many have believed that it is a matter collapsing.
The reason I think this is cool, okay, two reasons. One, it's really pretty. But also, time travel is a thing that comes up in science fiction a lot. But this is cool in that it affects time travel just by rearranging all the particles in the people to the way they were 13 seconds ago. I think it's pretty cool. What do you think?
It makes more sense than other time travel in other films, certainly.
I mean, the weird thing that did stuck with me is only the person that actually triggers it by twisting the thingy keeps the memory of triggering the thingy. So I don't understand it. Like his brain is the only thing that's not rearranged. So I don't know how to explain that one, but it is pretty. I think it looks cool. I'll give it that.
So the theory I thought up earlier was that, so it works by rearranging matter, and I like to think that it rearranges everything else's matter to send it back 13 seconds, but because the commander is touching the thing, the lever, when it rearranges the matter, his matter doesn't get rearranged, right? So his...
You got shot.
Also true?
Okay, reality. This is why we peer review papers.
Good call, good call.
Also, I mean, it goes without saying there is some kind of Heisenberg compensator in here somewhere, right?
Yes.
Right at the end of the movie, they separate the command deck, which is apparently a thing you can do, and they hurtle down to Earth through the atmosphere. And again, my bar for this movie is pretty low, so when I was watching this, I was like, cool, they recognize that the atmosphere generates friction and heat, and that the ship would heat up as it's going through the atmosphere. Good job. That wasn't your reaction.
No, I mean, I'm a big like NASA space shuttle fan, so I was like, no, that's not how the space shuttle would work. Like the space shuttle came in with its belly forward because you want to spread that heat over as much area so you can dissipate the heat. And you have the shuttle tiles that were really badass and they dissipated that heat. So if you're coming in like nose down first, that's going to get super hot. You don't want to be aerodynamic at that point. You want to slow your ass down, pump the brakes, as the kids say. So yeah, this bothered me, but I guess there was a tiny bit of good science.
But again, they did go through a black hole, so shielding.
Good point, good point.
And the gels all around the super
Covered in the
Tower 11 gel.
Sure.
See, we have totally figured this out. This is all completely plausible. So, summary of this movie. How would you summarize your experience as a scientist of watching this movie?
I'd say I've definitely seen worse movies. My college roommate's entire family still calls Gravity the movie that Moiya ruined. I've seen worse movies, and I think the reason I don't have as much of a problem with this is because none of you thought you were learning science while you were watching this, right? Like, it doesn't take itself seriously enough for people to think that it's real. So I don't have any issue with it being as ridiculous as it is.
Yeah, we've definitely all had experience with films that bill themselves as scientifically accurate, and they use simulations, and they use real data.
She's talking about Interstellar.
But there are films that bill themselves as very scientifically accurate, and then you watch them and you're like, okay, well that part is good, but the rest of it is horrible. And this one, I compared this to one of my all-time favorite films, Jupiter Ascending, which
Three fans.
Also clearly does not try to be scientifically accurate. There are like gravity boots and solid core inside Jupiter where you can build a mining station, etc. And I think that when we go into it knowing that it's completely fiction and it's not supposed to be scientifically accurate and they're not taking themselves seriously and trying to be fancy about it, it's much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love this movie. It's hilarious. I really, really tried hard to find some science in it. I mean, I said earlier, like, oh, I learned nothing from this movie. Oh, I guess I learned about gallium arsenide and beryllium. And then it was pointed out that, no, I learned that from Wikipedia. Nothing from the movie. But yeah, I mean, I love, like, every cast member. They're all in other great films as well. And yeah, this ensemble is hilarious.
And it is, in my opinion, the fourth best Star Trek movie.
What are 1 through 3?
Oh, people are going to walk out if I say that. Okay, no, you know what? I will fight anyone over this. The best Star Trek movie of all time is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Seriously, I will fight you.
Alright, interesting.
It's the Voyage Home, the one with the whales.
That's number 3. And obviously Wrath of Khan is number 2. Okay, so for those of you who are based in Austin, we have another movie screening coming up on June 27th, which is soon, in a few weeks. We're doing completely the other end of the movie spectrum. We're going to look at Apollo 13, which is an awesome movie. We're going to be back over at the Alamo Drafthouse Mueller, where maybe the slides will work. So tickets will be on sale at some point soon. Keep an eye on the Facebook, the Twitter, the mailing list if you're on it, and we will announce when those are on sale. That's going to be great fun and a bit less silly than this one. And I want to say thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and thank you to my amazing panelists who are in town for the American Astronomical Society meeting, which is taking place here in Austin this week, and the Women in Astronomy meeting, which is taking place this weekend. Jeffrey Silverman, Ashley Pagnotta, and Moiya McTier. Thank you very much.
I did good science lately. We have a paper that just got accepted to Nature.
There you go.
What's the topic of the paper?
So there was a nova that went off in Scorpius in 1420? No, 1437? 1437. And we recovered the original system. So there's I'll take a step back. So a nova happens when you have two stars, and one of the stars is a white dwarf, which is like the ember of a dead star. It's what our sun's going to turn into in about 5 billion years if you come back. And it is next to another star, and it's basically sucking material off of the outer layers of its companion star. So this material, which is mostly hydrogen gas, builds up on the surface of the white dwarf until it gets very hot and dense and reaches critical temperature and pressure and explodes off. And so it's just this top layer that explodes off and leaves behind a shell and leaves behind the system, doesn't destroy either of the stars. And so this nova was recorded in Chinese texts in 1437, and we have gone back and found the original system, so it's not in anywhere near the same place as it was before. So one of the things that I did, we had a big group that worked on this, so one of the things that I did is I used archival photographs from the 1900s and used that to find an old picture of it to determine the motion of it. But we're back with Gallium arsenide.
Hey, you got to learn some science, so yay.
I want to point out this slide starts with "He has tortured our scientists," so that was a bit torturous.